Hello everyone and welcome to Discover Joyous Love. It is Mondays with Anita DeFrancesco. I am your host and I bring this program to you every Monday. Today's topic, this week's episode number 9 topic, is letting go of resistance. And resistance is something that lives inside your body and it fights with the ego. So we have this, in between is a space. You have resistance and you have your ego, and then you have your spiritual being and you have your being, your physical being. So somewhere around the physical character, the emotional character, is where we need to take a look and see what it is that we resist in our lives. Where are we somewhat stuck? But the resistance is within. And it manifests in the different things that you want to do or you take part in, or the things that you choose, the journey and how far you will go. If we open up to resistance, we surrender to the ego and we let go of the fear. So a lot of what I'm going to talk to you about is based on Eckhart Tolle's work. He talks a lot about resistance in his book, The Here and Now. And I'm going to read one of his quotes to get started here. He says, letting go of inner resistance, you often find circumstances change for the better, Eckhart Tolle. And this is true, that the circumstances in your life and your orbit around you, the relationship you have with space, the relationship you have with people, with time, with your emotions, with your feelings, all become centered. And from there, you can little by little let go of resistance. How do we get resistance? It is something that stems from fear. It stems from abandonment. It stems from not being accepted. It's a lot of different things that this stems from. But, there's so much work available out there today that we can really help ourselves. Good morning, everyone, and you're listening to Discover Joyous Love. I am your host, Anita DeFrancesco, and this is episode 9, and we are talking about how to let go of resistance. Now, inner non-resistance is the real doing nothing. So when you have what we call the inner non-resistance, you're really doing nothing. But when you live with resistance, you are in a constant fight with yourself. And this is how you age, and this is how disease sets in. So the fight with yourself is the fight-flight, and a lot of it has to do with resistance, because a lot of times there's just things that we just cannot accept, or we have a fear of moving into something different or change. Something that change will make you more truthful, will make you more alive. So the inner non-resistance, as Eckhart Tolle would say, is the real doing nothing. It's the intense alertness that you live with. It lives within. The ego believes that in resistance lies your strength, whereas in reality, resistance splits you from your truth. So, where the ego is, your resistance lies your strength, whereas in reality, resistance splits the strength, and this is your real truth. Resistance is a weakness. It is powerless. It is something that controls you. So can we wake up from resistance? It's a fear masquerading as strength. Take a breath on that, folks. I mean, a fear masquerading as strength. You might as well be in a costume all your life. You are wearing the face of resistance. So we have to get conscious. We have to come into the consciousness and awaken the spirit. So it really lies in your spirit. Now, your spirit is your part of you being liberated with your fears, the things that held you back, the things that weren't a part of your innocence as a child or anywhere along the path. What the ego perceives as weakness is your power, your innocence, your purity. So the ego perceives as weakness your power. And this is why people lean on the resistance, because people don't like change, and they don't want to, they're comfortable in a comfort zone. But the comfort zone is a stuckedness. So you have to be able to tell the difference between, are you content and in a comfort zone, or are you stuck? Are you split? Are you frozen? The ego, resistance mode, it plays the counterfeit roles to cover up your weakness. So ego is fighting with resistance all of the time. So a lot of people have a very strong developed ego. Now we need ego, of course. I spoke last week about the ego, or a few weeks ago. But the ego is something we really need to have, but we don't need to have the resistance with it where we're in the fight. We're really fighting with ourselves. So we are not allowing ourselves to be who we are. And we live in a falseness. But it works for some people. So the resistance mode, when the ego is in resistance mode, it plays counterfeit roles to cover up your weakness, which in reality is your power. So can we, for a moment, everyone, let's take a breath. I know power is something that is hard to face. And this is why we counterfeit and masquerade the personality, the face, the real self. So for a moment, can you just sit down and with your feet flat on the ground, just breathe into your stomach and see if you can come into a place of power, a place of truth, a place that is you, a place that only you visit, that only you know. And when you come to that place, it may take a little while than just these few seconds here, but what you can do is sit for 15 minutes a day, or at least once, twice a week, and go back to that place where it was just you, and begin to harness your power. The work has to be done. Now, when we surrender, surrendering is definitely necessary to let go of the resistance, the inner resistance that lives within. Then you no longer need the ego and the defense and the false mask. So, surrender is necessary. Surrendering is necessary to let go of the false mask, or you will live in the unconscious mind for the rest of your life. And living in the unconscious mind is not real. And over time, people living in their unconscious mind become more split in their body. They encounter more disease, more physical and medical diseases, and more psychological, emotional illnesses, we'll say. So surrendering, I know surrendering is tough, but let go of the grudges. We cannot hold on forever, because that is dangerous. That is not life. That is not aliveness. You're listening to Discover Joyous Love. I'm your host, Anita DeFrancesco. Episode 9, Letting Go of Resistance, is the topic this week. Now, I'm going to continue to talk about some work here. You become simple. It's dangerous, says the ego. Now, being simple and vulnerable, which I love being simple and vulnerable, and honest. I'm not saying you need to wear your emotions on your sleeve. I'm not saying you need to not have boundaries. Of course you need healthy boundaries. You don't want to be completely vulnerable where people walk on you or take advantage of you. But you want to have that simplicity, that part of you that feels like it's doing nothing. So the more you fight with the inner resistance, the more your ego gets stronger and the more armor builds on your body. And so then you become not simple. And you don't even know what that feels like to be simple, because you're living in a cave. You're living in a masquerade. masqueraded, counterfeit body. So this is something that if you become and surrender just a little bit to people or things or circumstances or situations, just surrender, become simple. Life will be so much more blissful, folks. In the ego, we hide behind it. But once you let go of resistance, now we hide behind this ego, okay? The ego is throughout your body. It lives here mainly, though. When you hide behind this, and once you let go of the resistance, through becoming vulnerable, which means you allow your soul and your feelings to show up, you then discover your true and essential invulnerability. So then you're not as vulnerable as you thought you were, because the ego was hiding the vulnerableness. It was protecting you, the blanket. But then you realize you're not really that vulnerable. You have an inner strength, a unique strength of your own, a unique power that you're now able to show. But again, the work has to be done to get there, because you don't want to be attacked on the way up to your journey of emotional health. So the invulnerability is who you really are. Discovering your truth. Resistance is a wall. Now think about a wall that's invisible. In terms of resistance, people don't want to know what they don't know. Okay, so in terms of resistance, people don't want to know what they don't know. Think about that. In other words, people are hiding from themselves. They can't face reality. They're in denial. It's called denial in the psychological character. They deny what it is that they don't even want to face. But this works for a lot of people. And this can create a psychopathic personality disorder. Terrible, folks, terrible. In terms of resistance, right, again, hear that. People don't want to know what they don't know. Resistance, an unconscious unwillingness backed by fear. Oh, all the fears that we have from being born, from walking into the world, from facing our peers, our friends for the first time. All of these fears that we have grown up to be, but we build a strength to them. We don't want you to build an ego, but a strength, an inner strength. So this resistance, an unconscious unwillingness backed by fear, is a pattern. It's an addiction. It's an addiction to your senses, to your emotions. So it's like an addiction, as if you were eating cake and you had an addiction to chocolate or something. This is an addiction to the emotions. Everything is an addiction to the emotions, whatever it may be. And it's a pattern. So what we want to do is unpattern that, break these patterns by creating the new you. We don't just want to release a pattern. We want to create a new you. Rebuild your inner self. It's a block, resistance. It's a split, frozen, a wall. Think about how much resistance you have. Do you feel like a wall? People can come up against you, but they can't get beyond you, and vice versa. It's not human to be living in that kind of pattern. The biggest resistance is fear, and it's a comfort blanket. So that's one thing we need to work on. So make a list, like I ask everyone to do, is make a list of all your fears, or at least so many, the big ones, starting with the little ones, then the big ones, and how you can work one at a time. Maybe as a child you were bullied in school and it's a big fear to open up to be in crowds with people, or to take on or become close or have intimacy with friends, because intimacy and bonding are a very important part of your growth in order for you to experience love and marriage and things of that nature. So this intimacy begins with your friends in school And if you were the type of child that was alone or abandoned or wasn't accepted or bullied, then you could have this fear there. So this would be one, say that is one, let's start to work with that. And we'll take the steps to move beyond that. We have to do the inner child work. You can come see me. I'm a psychotherapist. I'm a love and relationship coach, Tantra love and relationship coach. Another cause of resistance is our repressed belief that something is bad. It stems from, as a child, we felt defined in terms of badness by our sexual instincts. So sexual instincts create a lot of shame and hiding. And when you're growing up and a child has these sexual feelings, which is normal, it's a normal part of growth, it sort of becomes repressed because you know it's not something that you can just go out and exhibit your sexuality and show people you're feeling sexy, right? You have to wait till you find a beloved, I would imagine, but in this day and age. Anyhow, the thing is, when you're repressing your sexual feelings, you're repressing your life force, because the sexual energy is the life force. Now, it has to be distributed through the body and the consciousness, brought up from the subconscious into the conscious part and the awareness, and it can be used as a healthy energy. So it is not anything to be in shame about, but when you're a child and your first sexual feelings would cause you to be feeling shameful or go into hiding. And this would be bad because parents generally, think that sex is dirty or bad, or they're the kind of things that have been said in the past. Parents would say, it's a dirty thing or a bad thing, and children start to grow up and believe that anything bad or seems bad, not even sexual, it's just from the sexual instinct, would cause them to go into resistance mode, that character in your psyche. So recognizing resistance, remaining a layer at a time. So what you want to do is respect and acknowledge your resistance. So I don't want you to fight with your resistance. I don't want you to hate yourself for being in resistance. I want you to acknowledge it and love it. And come into that point where that when you start to accept and surrender to this resistance and starting to love it, categorize all these different types of emotions or feelings that you have or blockages, categorizing each one in your body brain, your brain body. Now, once that you start to acknowledge and accept this, you're about 40% on the way to blissfulness, to love, loving yourself even more. Now, Freud says, encountering tenacious resistance. The deeper the analysis, the greater the resistance. So if you're in psychotherapy, for example, I have clients that come to me for love and relationship coaching and psychotherapy and tantra, and a lot of time when they start to open up and want to go deeper in expressing their experiences, their traumas, their PTSD, whatever it may be, you find that they get into what we call a tenacious resistance. They start to resist because, not that they don't trust you, but they don't trust themselves, and they have a fear of themselves. So, and actually people feel like they're going to fall apart when the ego dissolves, when the ego starts to crack. This is where you need to hold my hand. Anyone's hand. That song by the Beatles. I want to hold your hand. Well, let me tell you, touch is a wonderful part of healing. So even touching people on the hand, the arm, can also, during their working process of, working themselves to become better at letting go of resistance and fears and shame, is some touch that goes along with that. And there's many ways to have touch, because a lot of time the armor is so thick and the senses are null and the essences are deadened. Hello, everyone. Good morning. It is Monday, and you're listening to Discover Joyous Love. I'm Anita DeFrancesco, and our topic, episode 9, is letting go of resistance. Resistance and other emotional issues are represented by the monsters, the demons, that block our aspiring hero within. We have monsters and demons that block the aspiring hero. And this, if we continue to live with the demons and the monsters, many things can happen to someone beside them going off the deep end in life, or they might become a sociopath, or they might become a psychopath, or have elements of that, or a codependent. So a lot of time, people that are in fear and have a lot of resistance, they become a codependent, so they get fixated on someone and they steal their strength, their power. And the other person doesn't even know it. So this whole thing with demons, we need to again acknowledge and love each and every monster that lives within you. Resistance takes many guises: inner conflict, anxiety, procrastination, indecision, and the passive-aggressive behavior. Today they love you, tomorrow they hate you. Today they're nice, tomorrow they're not nice. Today I receive you, tomorrow I don't receive you. This passive-aggressiveness, back and forth. It's the love, the hate. It's the constantly running, the push and pull, running to togetherness and running away from that, separating. So it is a part of your character to be able to have chaos and to be able to have a push and pull, to be able to have some resistance, but to be in that mode of stuckedness with it, and you don't even know it, causes a lot of hate, and you will be living with anger. So it really stems from the fear, and the fear is the anger. The anger is underneath all of that. The unwillingness to consider new ideas. So, not being open-minded. So, open-mindedness is modern, but it's old now because we're in 2021. Open-mindedness was something I developed as a child, but I found that a lot of people had rigid, closed minds when I was going to school, or at least that they weren't exposed to a lot of things that didn't open them up. But the more you're exposed to creativeness and traveling, the more open-minded you become, but not necessarily. Not everyone becomes open-minded. To be open-minded takes courage. And to be open-minded is just a normal thing of this day and age. Because we have so much at our hands here with technology. You have to be open-minded. But, if you are not, the unwillingness to consider new ideas would be resistance. Falsifying reality to accommodate defenses. Achieving inner freedom and self-realization. So when you achieve an inner freedom and a self-realization, this is when you begin to open the heart. And the heart is where a lot of the resistance lives. Because this is a very strong emotion, and people are afraid of their own feelings. So what I want you to do is have a relationship with your own feelings, not someone else's feelings out there. No one else is going to complete that higher power in you except you. So you begin with a relationship to your own feelings, to your own heart. Resistance is stuckedness. It has a grip on us. It's a hold, it's a mask. So now when you have friends in your life that have a hold on you, the influencers, the ones that are more or less fixated on you or try to control you or steal your power because they're envious of you. And you have to really look out for that, because those kind of people have a lot more resistance. But in order for them to try to tap into the resistance, they may try to tap into someone else's power that's healthy, and that person may not realize it or may not see it. So the idea is to be very conscious of who you choose as your friends, the people that come into your circle, because they are vampires out there. I call them vampires. They will steal your power in a second. They're sociopaths, a lot of that type of people, or at least have that character. So it has a grip on us, but people can have a grip on you. Resistance conceals or it hides itself through procrastination, not showing up, through immediate gratification, food, sex. So people that need immediate gratification, such as food and pleasure, the more pleasures in life, immediate gratification, or they always have to have that, then this is where resistance hides. And you can help yourself. That's right. You can help yourself let go of resistance. Criticism. Avoiding the focus of the self, pointing the finger to others, endless opinions on how others should be living or should not be living. Now, for example, I know someone that does that to me, a family member. They're always pointing the finger, how I should live, how I shouldn't live, what I should wear, what I shouldn't wear, how my hair should be, how I should smile. And this is a constant criticism that comes in, which on their end of things, they are avoiding the focus of themselves by projecting. It's called projection. When someone projects, belittles, condescends you, they're just taking all of the focus off of themselves and functioning under the umbrella of resistance. No good. Look out for those people. Self-doubt. Fear is the mother of all resistance. Analysis, paralysis. When I read another book, take another course, then I will be ready. So have you heard people say, once I do this, once I do that, once I take another course, once I move to another city, once I get a mate in my life, or once I get to a certain age, then I'm ready. So that is all, again, another umbrella of resistance that you hide behind, and you keep fighting with yourself. Or maybe you're not fighting with yourself. You're just not going forward. And going forward is a part of growth. Whether you grow in height, whether you grow in age, growing forward begins in your emotions. That's right, in the emotions. How to heal from this resistance patterned personality. Cognitive reframing, restructuring. Okay, so we want to break those patterns and create newness. I already mentioned that. So we want to have a cognitive restructuring, a cognitive reframing. Staying in your power. Now, staying in the power is very, very difficult for some, unless they have that strong ego. Because we're afraid if people attack us, people say things to us that we might not be able to help defend ourselves in any way or come back at them. But the more real you are and the less resistance you have, you will attract the person that is more like you. So you will be able to recognize people that live in resistance and fear, and you may not be as attracted to them the better that you get. So the more healthier you get emotionally by letting go of the resistance, you will attract the better people in life. And then you will know that your integrity and your truth are starting to shine. Reticular activating system, directing the attention toward desire. Again, if we over-desire, if we're constantly the reticular activating system, directing your attention toward desire, can help with resistance, because desire is your truth. So if you are looking, desire is anything. It is anything in life. It could be materialistic, it could be physical, it could be objective, whatever it is. Having a desire and moving toward your desire and manifesting your desires is a part of letting go. So resistance is about letting go. If you don't like the word resistance, just let go and say, I let go. Staying in your own power, not someone else's power. Stop belittling, stop condescending people, because then you are living in a false power and you are ultimately trying to take away their power by belittling them. But the ego doesn't win in the end. It does not win in the end. Tapping into your senses is one way of healing resistance, opening up to the feelings, the senses. So Tantra can help. Yoga, Tantra yoga, opening the senses, dance movement therapies, any type of physical martial arts. The brain supports manifestation. So I'm going to leave you with that. The brain supports manifestation. And where and how will you honor your brain cells that live throughout your body, not just in your head? Thank you, everyone, for listening. You've been tuned in to Discover Joyous Love. I am your host, Anita DeFrancesco. Episode 9, our topic, letting go of resistance.